Hey, what is up, everyone? It's MG. This is our Rsync demonstration video on October the 7th. So we're going to kick it off momentarily. This is a no camera day because it's not going to be a very long lecture. We are actually just going to jump right into it after a couple announcements, right? So initial announcement, right? We've got exam 4 coming up on the 12th. So next Monday, I believe, is the 12th. Um, you're going to want to look over the backup notes and the backup slides and the backup video so you can take that exam. It opens at 0 hours in the morning on the 12th and it closes at about 11:30 p.m. on that day. It is going to be at 45 minutes. That's right. Yeah, I can't stare into your souls. So sorry about that. Um, all right, let's see. What are we doing? You know what? Actually, let's just go right into it. So the point of this lecture, of this demonstration, is to demonstrate, really, like, just quickly demonstrate rsync, so that we can prepare for the final assignment in the whole thing. And that assignment will post next Wednesday. So we don't get to look at the assignment yet. It will include rsync. It will include taking backups with rsync, but this is to demonstrate how rsync how it works, or one way that it can work. So so it's not a comprehensive, like, tutorial or anything about assignment 4. This is just one single component of it, right? So we can see my black background screen on the left. This is my all right, hold on. Might have to reconnect. Yeah, it looks like that died, so give me one moment. I'm gonna restart my terminal. All right. Sometimes you have to do that. So this is my, you can see that this is my stable VM. You could also tell that by, oh, okay, I logged in twice, whatever. You could also tell that by the fact that I'm CMPS315 user at the hostname CMPS315. And over here, I have my, um, I have my W number user on the class server 59.88. The way that I have both of these up at the same time is pretty simple. I logged into my stable VM twice, one on each side, and that is how I got to my stable VM. And then on one of the instances, I just SSH'd to as my W number to the 59.88. So there's nothing that says you can't have multiple terminals open, all going to the same machine. And because I have my what do you call it, my private key and my public key and everything set up the way I did in assignment 3, I'm able to just go into my W number user on 59 to 88. So just understand, left is my stable, right is the server VM. So gray background, server VM. So what I want to do, I want to make sure that I'm in my home directory. There's nothing in my home directory. I just did a present working directory pwd command right there, and it said, cool, you're in your home directory. This is the absolute path of our home directory. So notice that it's /home/CMPS315. The initial backslash right there is denoting the absolute path. So I'm in my CMPS315 home directory. And I did ls for list. There's nothing here. So when I come over here and I do pwd, I find that I'm in the home directory of my W number user. And if I ls here, I have created, in preparation for this sort of demonstration, I have created a to replicate folder. And if we look at to replicate, I see that there are a bunch of files in there of no consequence, really, but for the sake of demonstration, here are a bunch of files that we can play with. So what we're going to do is we are going to grab those files via rsync from our stable VM, where the source files are located on our W-numbered home directory on our class server. So if we remember the command, right, it's rsync, but if we don't remember it, we can look it up via the man page. And we can see there are a lot of things. Effectively, we want to do rsync and then some options, and then the source and the destination. The source being the files on our 59 to 88 area, and then the destination being our local stable VM. In this case, just our local home directory. So there's a bunch of ways we can do this. If we go down to the options area, I'm going to use space to kind of go a little bit faster because there are quite a lot of arguments. There we go. There's a lot of options, rather. What we typically want to do is we want to look at archive, which if you look at -A or -- archive, you see that it's actually sort of a shortcut option, and it's the same thing as putting -R, L, P, T, G, O, and capital D, where R is recursive, L is the links, so copy symlinks, P is the permissions, so we want to preserve permissions. This is good. T, there's T even on here. T is the times. We want to preserve modification times. G is groups, so we want to preserve groups. O is we want to preserve the owners. And then D, capital D, is we want to, it's same as device or specials. So we just want to do device and specials. So anyway, this is just all of the necessary permissions that we need to move files from one place, or to copy files from one place to another using rsync and retain as much sort of abilities, original abilities as was there. And we typically like to use the verbose flag as well because we like to see what things are doing. Now, in great detail. Now, we did mention in our slides that we may also need to put a -E command, which is specify the remote shell to use. But we're not going to be doing that. We're actually going to be using -E to include an SSH port change. And if we go all the way to the bottom, you see how there's quite a lot of things here. If we go, and it explains each of them, so we see a lot of stuff there. If we go to the very bottom of this, and I'm hitting space a bunch to kind of get to the bottom. I don't know when it'll be. Let's just... All right, cool. If we go up a little bit, we can see that there are some bugs. There may even be some examples somewhere. Maybe. No, there's no examples of this. All right, I'm going to hit Q and I'm going to get out of that. There's no examples, but that's okay. We're going to see some examples now. So rsync, our options, and then our source and our destination. So where do we want the files from? Where do we want them to go to? So rsync, and then we have our options, A and V. And we also have to do a -E, right? Because we have to specify the SSH port as 4422. If we did not change the SSH port, if we were using like the normal 22 for our SSH port, we wouldn't have to do this step, this -E, and then inside the double quotes, we wouldn't have to do any of that. So just understand that the reason we're doing that is because in order to sort of like secure some things in a different way, we changed the port, so we have to tell rsync about that change. And normally we would use a lowercase p, but if you go back and look at the rsync options, lowercase p is actually already in use, and I believe uppercase p is in use as well. So we have to use -E to change this. So now we've got to do our source and our destination. So remember, our destination is going to be /home/cmps315/ whatever folder we want to call it on our stable VM. The source, though, is going to come from the other VM, and the way that or the other the other server VM that we have, the 59 to 88 VM. So the way we approach this is, first off, we need to know we need to access or run this command in the context and as the user that has a pathway to that server, to 59 to 88. Because of assignment 3, we should be able to use our CMPS 315 user in a non-root context to access our W number user's data over on that 59 to 88 machine, because that's how we set it up in assignment 3, right? We've created a key and we send it over as our W number. So the way that we define the source in this case, if it's at the home level, the home directory of our W number user on 59.88 is the user. So user at the server, and then colon the absolute path of where it's going to be. So what we're referring to that is the absolute path of the data on this server as this user, which is actually right here, /home/ my W number. And then it wrapped around a little bit, but just continue it. And then it will be this data. So we want the to replicate folder. All right, so that is the source. The destination would be, typically I like to use absolute paths because whenever you're scripting things, you don't have to move around in your script so much. You could just set the absolute path versus a relative path. The relative path would be something like this. / says, put it right where I'm at. Drop it right in /home/ CMPS 315. I don't like using that though, because if I wasn't in /home/ CMPS 315 and I ran this command, it would literally move the to replicate folder wherever I am. And that's not really good. I don't like that. So I like to put in the whole directory right there. Now, because I am adding the to replicate folder right here, and I'm adding a trailing / right here, it should just put the to replicate folder directly in my home directory. If I wanted to name it something else, I could say, alternative name or whatever, and that would name it that way. But for instance, if I took away that trailing /, that would actually replace the entire contents of my home directory with the contents of to replicate. So that wouldn't be okay. I wouldn't want that. And the reason I wouldn't want that, I'm going to copy this real quick so I can do this. The reason I wouldn't want that is because I've got a lot of other things in here that we weren't initially seeing, right? I've got my bash history and my console. I've got cache, config, nano, and profile, but I've got my private and public keys there. So it's really important that I never overwrite my home directory, because that has files that I need for subsequent commands and just quality of life. And if I destroy .ssh, right? If I run rsync, it is going to replace all of this information, right? All of this with just these files. So I don't want to do that. I want to be really, really mindful of what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that back. And what we're going to do is we're going to run this, and it's going to give us a little bit of output. It's going to say, cool, receiving incremental file list. This is important because in a second when we do something, it's going to make a lot more sense. It's getting all of the files that have changed that I currently do not have on the machine that I'm running it on, like at the destination. So it looked at the destination, it looked at /home/ CMPS 315. It saw, okay, we don't have the to replicate folder. We also don't have file 0s through file 9 in the to replicate folder. So here are the files that we're going to send him. From the server over here, here's the files that we're going to send. All these guys. I said, cool, it sent 218 bytes, that's fine. It received it, it did it pretty quickly. These are all empty files, by the way, so if we were to do ll, we should be able to see, yeah, we got to replicate, cool. And if I look inside that, I see a bunch of files that are just, they're all 0 because there's no file size to them. I just made a bunch of dumb files that don't do anything just to showcase this. But we see we have all the files, and it actually has, interesting enough, we have some file time, right? And that file time isn't right now. If we come back here and we look inside here, I forgot as this user I don't have LL, I have ls-l, and I would if I could type it right, L-L. We see that the file times, the creation times actually, totally match from when I created it at about 3 p.m. today. So that's good, because otherwise these files would look like they just got created. And we want to preserve all that information, at least in this example. We might not want to preserve it later, but cool. So the neat thing is if I ran this exact same command again, notice that it doesn't have a list of files. Up here, I just shift paged up to show this. Up here we have a bunch of files in our incremental file list. But once I run it again, we don't have any files there. And the reason we don't have any files there is because none of the files changed. If I created a file, for instance, and let's just call it file 10, file 11, file 12. All the touch command does in this instance is just creating sort of a blank file that ideally you create the file, you update a timestamp on a file, you just refresh a lot of the timers on a given file with the command touch. In this case, it's creating a blank file so that I can test some things out. So I created file 10, file 11, and file 12 in the toReplicate folder. If I rerun this command now, notice it just grabs the file 10, file 11, and file 12. And now if I look in the toReplicate folder, I've got file 10, file 11, and file 12. So the neat thing about that is I was very easily able to rerun. I was very easily able to rerun the same command, and without any changes to my source files, it didn't hurt anything. After I made a change, it added the files that I made a change to. So too, if I remove a file. So if I remove file, I don't know, 5, we don't like him anyway, and file 7, right? So I removed those. So now if we look at this, we'll see it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, skips 5, 6, skips 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If I rerun this over here again, it'll say, cool, we received the incremental toReplicate folder. And now if we look at toReplicate, we see that 5 and 6 and 7 are still there, right? It's still there. So it's not deleting these files just yet. And if we wanted to delete files, right? If we wanted to get rid of 5 and get rid of 7, we'd have to go back and look at Rsync. We'd have to see exactly what commands we could use to do that, right? So we're probably going to look for something like delete, and maybe this is it right here, --delete. So let's maybe do that. So let's adjust our command real quick. Let's go back up here, and before this -e, let's do --delete, spelled correctly. And when we run this, notice it said receiving incremental file list, deleting toReplicate 7 and toReplicate file 5 and file 7. So now if we looked at this, we see that file 5 and file 7 are now gone. So we effectively kept that in line. And I believe there's actually an easier way of doing that. If we go back through here and look again, there's probably not an archive. There's probably another like copy or something that we could probably find. Not going to waste our time with it right now, but yeah, there's other things in here that you could do that with. So you could even have human readable. This doesn't make a lot of sense whenever it's so fast because the files are so small. But if you have a lot of things going, a lot of big things going, you might want to look at turning on --progress or -h for human readable, because you'll actually see the individual progress bars and for all the files and everything, so you can get a sense of how fast your data is going. But that is pretty much the easiest, most straightforward demonstration of Rsync that I could throw at you. I know we're 20 minutes in, but you know, are there any questions in chat? This is Rsync. This is just real basic. You know, let's because I said something about it. If we wanted to say put toReplicate in a different folder, we could do something like folder 1, and whenever I run this, now I could see that folder 1 was created alongside toReplicate. toReplicate was the thing that I created previously. Folder 1 was created by this command that I just ran. Also, if I wanted to this is more of an example of slashes and not slashes. If I just put slash right here and maybe like an asterisk, right, a wild card, this command now is saying give me everything inside of to replicate and replicate it to folder one. So if I run this, it's actually just getting the files. So if I look inside of folder one, we now see there's all the files, and there's also to replicate, which was the folder we created previously. So if we look inside that, we see that the files are there as well. This is interesting, right? Because depending on how we script things and how we run this command, we may end up having this like cascading, like nested file system sort of thing, and we definitely don't want that. I don't know if tree a command. Nah, tree is not an adequate command yet. So it's important to get your whenever you're looking at source and destination, understand that your source, I usually specify the actual folder, folder to folder, right? So if I wanted to back something up as backup one or whatever, I would just specify backup one directly. And that's the way that I would just handle that, in my opinion. That's the better way, instead of trying to deal with getting things to line up by backslashes and asterisks and things like that. I'm not seeing any. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so I'm guessing we don't have any. I'm going to leave it for a little bit to see if maybe some people think that they do all of a sudden have some sort of questions before signing off. Again, this is not something you need to worry about right now. You can, of course, create files on your W number directory and rsync them back and forth or whatever, and do things. The rsync is installed on both locations, so you don't have to install it. Rsync is, I'm sorry, the permissions, the authorization on the 59.88 server is so that you have limited ability inside anything other than your home directory. So it's important to understand that it's important to understand that like you won't be able to create things in other directories. I got a command, or I got a question. Rsync delete command you ran there. What did it do? Are you referring to the rm-rf command, or are you referring to the addition of -- delete up in the rsync command? Okay, so this is rsync-av. -av is archive and verbose. -- delete will delete files that are extraneous. I don't know if you're going to ask about the directory that it left in there. That's because I think there's a different command for like -- delete -dir maybe. But yeah, so what's designed to do is if you run that command multiple times, it will delete any files that have been deleted on the other side as well. So if we go back through here somewhere, yeah, so it's delete extraneous files, but not extraneous directories. And I'm sure there's something in there that will, I don't know, that will take care of that. Maybe I don't know. There's something in here I think that that takes care of that, but I'll leave that to you guys to figure out. Yeah. So all this did was archive. So take all of the archive options, verbose, make it a little wordy. If I didn't run this, it would just be a little quieter. -- delete, take care of any extra files. -e along with this ssh command. You know, go ahead and change the port and then source to destination? So good question though, because I saw that and I said, hey, wait a second, and I'm like, oh wait, it's not a file, it's a directory. And I know that that sounds dumb, but that's how it works. No worries. So are there any questions? There's no reason to keep dragging it out if there aren't. If there are, go ahead and type them in, and I'll start closing up and move on. But exam 4 is on October 12th. Everybody needs to take care of that. Opens up at midnight, close midnight or 0 hours on that day, Monday, and closes at approximately 12:30 or 11:30 p.m. on the same day. You have 45 minutes to take it, but once you start, you have 45 minutes. And you don't need to do anything with Rsync right now other than just play around with it and test it. Please do not wipe out your home directory. I'm not responsible for you misplacing your private keys or whatever because you decided to overwrite your home directory with a command that you didn't fully understand. Be very, 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 very careful. And I would even suggest, if you want, back up your key using the root context user someplace where your CMPS 315 user can't mess with it if you really wanted to be safe. But alternatively, just never, ever, ever operate directly in your home directory. Operate somewhere inside of it, somewhere like, in rsync test folder or something, a directory that's, there's no way that you're going to. You might blow that away, but you'll never blow away your /home/CMPS 315. All right, well, that's all I have for you. Real quick, 30-minute class. I appreciate everybody showing up, all 10 or 11 of you. This is hopefully going to be posted relatively soon on Moodle, so on YouTube and Moodle. So just stand by for that. And if you have any questions that I did not answer in this presentation or in this demonstration, go ahead and send me an email, mg@selu. .edu. So I see that someone missed the first 10 minutes. That's fine. Go back and rewatch it. Yeah, it's just demonstration of how Rsync works. If you have any questions, go ahead and take care of that. Everybody else, y'all have a great weekend. Watch out for the storm. It seems 2020 is just going to have to get us with a hurricane. If the storm does something that just is terrible and we have to push or change something in the class, I will make everybody aware of that via Moodle. And the standard disaster education continuity plan will go into effect. So if any of that happens, you'll get an email or an announcement through Moodle. So everybody have a great weekend as well, and I will talk to